Classic. Welcome back, rugby league fans, to the Mad Monday podcast, third episode of the year, brought to you live from the Export Beer Garden studio here. Of course, the Mad Monday podcast is the ACC's branch. Joining me today, by the way, it's Chris Key here. We're making a massive, I think we need a round of applause actually, the huge return of Manaia Stewart.
I was going to clap for myself there just because one person giving a round of applause is hardly a round, is it? But I felt a bit weird clapping for myself. But great to be back, Chris.
Yep.
Lend a bit of mana to the podcast.
Yep.
Didn't get a chance to watch it live because I was on the ACC's coverage of the whichever Super Rugby game was on at that point, as well as one of the more tedious test matches you'll ever watch. But I got a chance to rewatch the replay, and some good takeaways, man. Some good things that we're building on there.
Oh, yeah. I'm feeling good. I mean, I haven't felt this good after a loss in a long time. But for those
Since last season,
yeah, when I'm justifying to myself that the Warriors are going to be fine, even on a 5-game losing skid. But just in case you aren't aware, Manaia, you were originally part of Mad Monday.
A founding member.
You were a founding member. It was me, you, Ben Hurley, and Di Henwood about 3 or 4 years ago now. Halfway through the season, unfortunately, you left, went elsewhere.
Yeah, look, we've discussed this on the ACC's Agenda podcast.
Right.
The ACC has a strict no-fault stand-down policy, so I can't discuss exactly what it was that I was stood down for. Needless to say that there was a lengthy suspension and it was served. I've seen allegations on NRL Reddit threads that I've been using commentary-enhancing drugs, or CEDs.
I was going to say peptides.
Yeah, a couple of peptides, a couple of EPOs, bit of blood cycling. But look, I can't address any of those rumours. I certainly won't be doing it on here, and I certainly don't have a burner account that I will be running on those NRL Reddit accounts, or Reddit threads. So I think it's best we just park it there, Chris,
right,
and we just move on.
Okay, we'll do. Before we rip into the first game of the round, just a shout out for anyone that is currently playing Supercoach and hasn't joined the Mad Monday Munters group. 160442 is the code. Come along, we're going to have prizes and stuff which we'll be unveiling in the next few weeks. We're just working on throwing something together. There are rumours about it being a Mad Monday spent with the Mad Monday crew.
Yeah, a bit of a watch along maybe, meet and greet, maybe a long lunch perhaps.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that. Even just me and you and Di and Ben would be lovely. Of course, Adam, producer, you could come as well, mate.
Only if you win it though, Adam.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to win the whole comp. I think, but the main prize up for grabs though is mana, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is. The cred saying that you've beaten not only the members of Mad Monday, but also the hundreds of people that are in the group currently.
Yeah.
So 160442. Please do get along. And without further ado, let's rip into the Warriors' second game of the season. Unfortunately, they did go down by 8. The Roosters winning 20 points to the Warriors 12.
Direct angle. Keary dummies inside, goes outside. Swalei. Tedesco is inside and Swalei runs away from him. Now he passes. Sam Walker dives in the corner.
Yes, the Warriors did go down to the, they were premiership favourites, certainly before the season got underway. Of course, went down to the Dolphins in round 1. The Roosters bouncing back, though, and look, I mean, we lost by 8. To a team with a salary cap double the size of everyone else's.
Well, a sombrero.
Yeah, it's in a sombrero. It's not a cap. But one takeaway from this is, yes, the Roosters were without a lot of their forward pack. You know, your Wadi Hargreaves, Brandon Smith injured early on again.
Matt Lodge, who picking up the tab to the tune of $700,000 this season.
Yeah, so that's true, actually. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He didn't even front up and play his old team. Victor Radley.
You want to talk about the sombrero? We're paying for one of their more expensive players this season. It's ridiculous.
I love how towards the end of last season, Matt Lodge was the highest paid player in the NRL.
Yes.
Because the Broncos, us, and the Roosters were all paying it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people say props and meatheads, but he's got it figured out. But Manaia, I mean, we got off to a rough start. Jackson Ford gone within the first 2 minutes, which was a real bugger. Wade Egan was going through the wars the whole time. Charles Nickel-Klokstad had a teeth issue.
Eventually, yeah.
There was a lot of injuries and stuff. But having said that, even though we went down 20 points to 12, a lot of positive takeaways.
But just on the Jackson Ford thing, that was a head clash with Lindsay Collins. I don't understand in the NRL how you can have a head clash that results in one guy going off, but not the other guy.
And the other guy plays 77 minutes.
And then I believe later on, sent off for an HIA again when he knocked his head later on in the game as well. I might be confusing that with another
But we have a theory on this. We discussed this last season where there are certain players, and Lindsay Collins certainly fits the bill, guys who you can't tell what they're already kind of concussed in their everyday life.
Yeah.
So when you go to do an HIA, they're just, par for the course.
So part of how an HIA works is they're asked questions, and this is how they set the baseline. They ask questions when they don't have a head knock, and they ask them, hey, answer this question, this question, this question. Then they ask them the same questions after the head knock. Now, if you're an absolute mutant like Lindsay Collins, a shout out to him. We love him. Great fan of this podcast. His baseline is going to be so low.
Yes.
That it's almost within the margin for error, the HIA. You're not going to be able to distinguish between a concussed Lindsay Collins and an unconcussed or inconcussed, Lindsay Collins. So he's very much he's gotten away with one a little bit there. But for me, we talk about positive takeaways. This game, for me, was a scheduling loss. Sometimes you can look at the entire schedule for the NRL season and you can just pick one out and say, we're going to lose this one just by virtue of the fact of where it's being played and when it's being played. Now, the Warriors have had a good full season here in Auckland, and it has rained the entire summer.
True.
Last 3 months, it's rained the entire time. Of course, we've had cyclones. We've had biblical flooding here in Auckland. They then have to go over to Sydney and play in 30 degrees. It was so hot that Andrew McFadden on the sideline had to take a drinks break. It was so hot that the Sydney City Roosters had wet tea towels on their heads at 20 minutes into the first half. How can you expect a team that's been training in cyclones to then come over and be able to put in an 80-minute performance?
And I mean, full credit to the Warriors as well. That is a really good point. I never even thought about that. It was a 5 o'clock game as well, so it was like the peak. The sun was at its zenith. And the Roosters, of course, coming off the back of losing to the Dolphins, so they were pissed off.
Fired up.
Once again, they've got like 4 sombreros on instead of 1 salary cap.
Well, we're paying for one of their players.
Exactly.
Who knows who's paying for the rest?
So you're right. But full credit to the Warriors, though. It took 36 minutes for Blocker to say we're out on our feet, which I think is a personal best for the Warriors.
And Blocker does my loaf in. Another thing was the commentator asked Blocker, well, do you sense a little bit of a turn of the tides in favour of the Warriors? He goes, no.
just say yes. The other thing with Blocker is I've noticed that, and a shout out, by the way, to the NRL, it sounds like they've been really giving their commentators coaching on the Polynesian names, the Māori names, which, I mean, it is difficult. But Blocker's the only guy who's just not showing up to any of the classes. Brandy, who's famously, had issues with pronunciation in the past, Swali last year has now become Swahili, almost like Swahili, and Blocker's just gone, nah, stuff that, it's Swahili.
Swahili. I did hear a Swahili in there as well, but I won't have you besmirching the good name of Greg Brandy Alexander.
You're quite good friends with him, aren't you?
Yeah, for not even first name basis, nickname basis. I rung him a couple of months ago and I said, oh, hi Greg, it's Manaia here, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, please Manaia, Brandy. So
that's pretty cool.
Big fan of this podcast is Greg Alexander.
I do love Brandy, actually. His analysis and stuff is good.
Brandy.
Brandy.
Yeah, no, he's excellent. I mean, look, we've looked good this year, and going into this year, one of the big highlights for me is the depth that we have on our team. Jazz Tavanga, who I'll talk about him a bit later as well, but
he's not even back yet.
He's not even back yet. He's just getting back to a little bit more physical activity, but he may not even be able to find a spot in the side when he is fully fit and healthy. Dylan Walker, is sort of occupying that 14 role and doing, for the most part, a pretty good job. But on top of that, it's our firing shots on the 6th play with some of the same issues that the Warriors have always been plagued by. Silly knock-ons, little bit of shapeless sort of throwing the footy around for no reason are still there. But we're putting plays on the 6th.
We're trying some shit.
We're trying some
crack,
shit.
Man.
The last couple of years that we haven't had the twist on the end of the punch, and all of a sudden we're starting to see it. That first try that we scored, which was a switch of the play from Tohu Harris back from right to left, and then I think it was Tamaiti Martin who almost like volleyball spiked it back on the inside to Sean Johnson.
That's
right. He almost crashes over, pops it back to Wade Egan for the try. It was a set piece, and we executed it, and we scored against one of the best teams in the league. I mean, that's got to be a silver lining.
And, yeah, I mean, because one of the things the Warriors used to be guilty of as well is it's the 6th, pass it to Sean, he does like a nothing bomb, and we sort of just tackle, and that's it.
And no one knew where it was going?
No one knows what the hell's going on, but we are trying some shit. There were double wraparounds going, triple skip passes out to the wing, and so the only thing that was letting them down was their execution on the basic stuff, which, once again, classic was. Maybe it was because it was hot, etc., but we did have a lot lot of, silly mistakes, drop balls. I do think when you mentioned Jazz Tevanga and the fact that he's coming back into what is already a pretty formidable forward pack, I don't think they would have signed old Dylan Walker, if they didn't intend to keep him at 14.
Have them play together, yeah.
So I think Jazz will come on, because he's too good to not obviously be part of the side. He'll come onto the bench, and I guess he'll take minutes away from like Tohu Harris, who's playing pretty much 80 and making 60 tackles a game, you know?
In every position as well. When Shans Nickel-Clockstead went down, Tamari Martin ducked back, and then it was a lot more ball handling, a lot more standoff from Tohu Harris.
Tahiro Tohu Harris.
Yeah, and on Dylan Walker, like a couple of no, I wouldn't say brain explosions, but, like a knock-on there towards the end.
Shit kick as well, that went dead.
A shit kick that went dead without anyone even having to touch it at all. Him and Tamari Martin also caused a couple of knock-ons. I think he passed the ball straight into the hip of one of his own players. And I just think it's a little bit clunky for those new guys coming in.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, but you can tell, like, Tamaida, yes, he is a bit clunky. He's still trying to find his sort of, rhythm with the team or whatever. But when he does pull something off, it's usually quite a nice play. And I think what they've done with Dylan Walker is just say, can you just come on and try some shit? So, like, he's tried some shit.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work, and he'll probably have a few more games like that. But once it does start working, because for the second half of last season, he was so mean at coming off the bench for Manly and just like throwing a cat amongst the pigeons, Yeah,
well, to use a basketball analogy, it's like Barry Brown Jr. for the Breakers. He is probably one of their best players, almost their best player, and he comes off the bench just so you can just go, hey, you just come off the bench and just do whatever the hell you want and just go for it.
Just play some Barry ball.
Yeah, play some Baz ball and just try some stuff. When we're talking about Jazz Tevanga, he's shaved his head, by the way. Do you reckon that's a good omen for the Warriors? Jazz Tevanga shaved head?
I think the amount of horrific shaved heads in the entire NRL. Although, didn't he do his for like cancer or something?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic omen. Let me say that first of all. But there's a lot of terrible lids getting about, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, I see it as a good omen. We're talking about when he comes back in, where's he going to play? He's a little small to play like a full middle forward position, and we've got Mitch Barnett playing in there at the moment. But I know that the Warriors have been talking about the fact that they've got another signing that they're hoping to announce. They talked about this before the season started. Cameron George said that they're still working on bringing another middle forward into the club.
Another one. So, I mean, the good thing is Tohu can play prop, he can play in the back row, he can play in the halves.
But he shouldn't have to, and that's the problem.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is a lot of their players can play more than one position. Like Barnett's a back row, he's playing prop. Neo Cordia can play in the front row and can play centres. So we've got quite a nice coverage for if someone does get injured.
Yeah, we do, but it's a very sort of band-aid solution. We need a proper another 80 minutes. Because remember when we had Matt Lodge, who's actually still on the books for the Warriors, $700,000 we're going to pay him this year. Him and Adam Whenua-Blake were probably the premier front row in the league for a fair stretch of last year. And getting Sean Johnson, getting Tamari Martin off the back of that kind of go forward would be excellent. So if we can get that one more middle forward, but Barnett's been doing a great job.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And he's something that I think that the Warriors have been missing for a long time is the RPBs, the Ruthless Parkour boys. And Matt Lodge probably a little bit too ruthless off field. But for an on the field player, Mitch Barnett, he's the captain of the RPBs in the Warriors department.
Hey, there's a couple of guys like Barnett around the NRL, actually, you just want on your side.
I'll give you David Clemmer.
David Clemmer's one of them. I mean, Lachlan Fitzgibbon's a bit too much of a big goober, but, there's just guys that just go a hundy for 80 minutes and just run head first into every situation.
Oh, David Clemmer was going... Well, we'll get to, I think, David Clemmer later on, but he was going a hundy for about 90 minutes on the weekend.
Yeah, he's a freak of nature. Good to see him doing well at the Tigers there. Just quickly before we wrap things up for the Warriors, another great display of goal line defence from us, and in fact, our defence in general, really good against the Roosters. We went into half-time down 8-6, although we spent a lot of that time in our own half defending very well. It was good to see Teddy have an absolute stinker. He still set up a try and had a couple of line break assists and stuff, but he dropped a few balls and things, so it's nice to see one of the best players in the world have a shocker.
Well, why don't you like Teddy? Because I also don't.
No, I like Teddy.
Oh, you do like Teddy?
Yeah.
So same here, but my issue with Teddy is for years, whenever Roger Tuivasa-Sheck did something well, they'd go, oh yeah, but he's no Tedesco.
Right.
And there was always this weird the Aussies would always say how good Tedesco was at isn't he a saint, the Italian stallion? And I'm like, we've got a guy who's just as good as that, if not better.
Who won Golden Dally M, sorry. Yeah.
Exactly.
Was it Block or Roach making those comparisons?
Probably.
Yeah, bloody hell. Another great game from Wade Egan, by the way.
Oh, tremendous.
Who is the heart and soul of this team.
Yeah.
Him and Tohu Harris just seem to be the glue, you know?
Well, and the big knock on Wade Egan was always that he's just a little bit boring, you know, like he was a safe tackle, an okay pass at a dummy half, but he didn't really bring a whole lot on offense. But this season, he has been absolutely outstanding. A scything half break that got us down one end of the field, and I think he's going to be. Great. I did see Wade Egan at a restaurant, a cafe, actually, late last season.
Oh yeah.
Him and
This is good shit. Yeah.
Jack Murchie, I think, was in Parnell.
Oh, fancy, you're right.
And they were eating what looked to be seafood and
At a cafe. Seafood. That's bold.
Must have been a restaurant, perhaps a bistro.
Okay.
And half of the crew actually had gloves on. They were provided with gloves from the bistro that they were eating at to keep their hands clean from whatever they were eating. Waiting and not among them, so he went raw dog with the hands, and I think that was a real statement of intent to the rest of the team. Like, hey fellas.
Well, to be fair, Wade Egan's got pretty good service. You know, he can pretty much pick something up and put it where it needs to go. So he's probably the only guy that won't get it all over himself.
Yeah, well, I like to think that he'd roll into practice straight after that with crab juice all over his fingers, and, just to add a little bit of extra,
All
resistance.
over his flippers. The only thing I worry with Wade Egan is he's such a nutter. He is sort of like Kalen Ponga for the Knights, where he's so crucial to our attack now. But he's such a nutter at going into the dark spaces head first and making tackles and stuff that he's constantly under the pump, injury-wise. And if he goes off, we're kind of a bit shafted, you know?
Yeah, well, and if you watch the highlights, so when you watch it in real time, there was a lot of time between. He got crunched in a tackle, and he got up holding what seemed to be his ribs or something.
His entire torso just holding it.
Yeah, I think he was holding his upper body onto his lower body. But if you go back and watch the highlights, they cut from that to him then breaking the field of play and making this massive thing. And you're just like, the strength of these guys to be able to, like, mentally, to be able to go and do that.
Shit, yeah. That's the difference right there.
He's been excellent. Just quickly on our Warriors team is Ed Cossey.
Yes.
Cossey corner last year against the Melbourne Storm. I was sitting in that corner when he ran in, I think, 3 tries against the Storm. That was absolutely tremendous, and he's devastating with ball in hand, but he's got a touch of the Manus about him. He's good for an error. Of course, it was him that played the ball where there was no dummy half.
Oh, was that him? Him and Pompey's got a touch of the Manus about him as well.
Pompey's got a touch of the Manus. He looks a lot like my cousin. But I think we're very excited. I'm particularly looking forward to the return of Dallin Watene-Zelezniak. I mean, I kind of forgot for half of that game that Ed Cossey is not our starting winger.
Yeah, so Dallin is scheduled to be back round 6 with that calf injury. So, yeah, you're right. But to be fair, they were targeting Cossey as well. They were putting bombs up to him, and he took all of them.
Well, and weirdly, and I think Blocker called this out, this is probably the only good thing he did in that game, we were kicking towards the wing. Swahili was playing in the centres.
Swahili?
Swahili was playing in the centres on the left edge alongside Bill Tupou, who a combined height of about 14 feet tall. I mean, Bill Tupou is half man, half ladder. They call him the giraffe. And for some reason, we were kicking
to them. And not the inexperienced Jackson Polo on the other wing.
No, and I wonder if it's because we were trying to kick away from where Ed Cossey was.
Surely you've got to, instead of trying to avoid your guys, you've got to target their weaknesses, right?
You would think so, but maybe there's also just they were caught in, maybe they weren't working for that. Maybe the Roosters pushed them into having to kick in that direction.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but yeah, that was an interesting tactic.
So, a couple of things I don't ever want to see again. First of all, Lindsay Collins getting a repeat set by forcing a dropout. I don't even want to see us give away that sort of shit, especially to Lindsay Collins. And another one that you touched on earlier was I haven't seen someone play the ball with just no dummy half there. And I mean, it's not the person who's been tackled's fault, is it?
Well,
do you have to wait? I mean, what's the...
He should have... Well, yeah, you're right. It's 50-50. If you rewatch that play, the 3 players who were nearest to him, because it was a decent attack, and he did well to stay in the field of play.
Yeah.
When he got up, the 3 players that were nearest to him all turned their backs on him.
Tamati Martin did, eh? He was like... Yeah.
And started marshalling each other to organise some sort of attack. But there was no one there with the presence of mind to...
Yeah. And Wade Egan was in the middle of the field holding his ribs together. Like, sorry, couldn't get there, guys.
So it's a couple of things. I think, one, it's the fact that we don't have a reserve hooker on the bench at the moment, we're not carrying Freddie Lussick around, and potentially that's what Jazz Tavanga could bring to the field.
Yeah, I think, can Dylan Walker play a bit of hooker as well?
I mean, the thing is, anyone can play dummy half for one play, and that's what's so frustrating about us rolling the ball back with no one there. But yeah, if we're handing out slices of blame pie, I think Cossie probably gets half of it. Half of the pie, and then we'll give a slice to the rest of the other three goobers who were standing behind him, none of which played the ball. Dylan Walker then knocked it on about 2 phases later when we got
That was just a cold knock on, eh? He was gutted by that.
Stone cold knock on. So yeah, so a little bit gutting, in a game that I think was a little bit closer than what the scoreline said.
Absolutely, and it was a few in midfield line breaks, and Swahihi there running all the way to the wing and then passing to Sam Walker. Those are freak tries, So I think the Warriors can walk away with their heads held high, execute the basics, catch the passes, keep trying shit. And I'll be looking for them to execute all that against the Cowboys this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Cowboys, of course, former coach Todd Payton, and that, I believe, is at Queensland Country Batting Stadium. So it's the Cows at home after playing the Roosters at home. So
great.
It's a tough one, but if the Wires play like they did and just fix a few things, I think they'll do well. Anything you want to add before we get into the stonker?
No, I've just thought that that's going to be about 40 degrees as well up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at 7:30 at least, so a bit later, but...
at least their coach doesn't know our entire playbook inside and out.
I've got one thing, though. I think one thing that we went over is that, do you see at halftime how pumped the whole team was that they could defend the whole game?
Yeah.
Do you see at halftime, the biggest positive thing was that the whole team, Sean Johnson stood up and everyone was just absolutely rapt about how well they performed under that pressure. So I think that's something that we've never had for so long.
Absolutely.
And they were loving it. And that's defense has not been the thing that you put hand in hand with the Warriors, man.
That's a change, right? That's something we've been wanting them to change for years.
And the last 10 minutes of the first half was the Roosters. I think they had about 3 repeat sets for a total of 14 or 15 consecutive tackles that the Warriors kept out. So, that's something that they can point to when they do the post-match review, which they've asked me to come in for. I wasn't available because I had to do this podcast. But that they can sit there and point at and just say, hey, this is actually a solid 10 minutes here. We're capable of it.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I can do the rest of the potty with Adam. It's fine. You can go.
What time is it? That's probably about late now.
Okay, fair enough. No worries. So once again, the Warriors taking on the Cows this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Over in North Queensland there, so that will be a tough one.
Live on the ACC as well.
Oh, yes, covering that live. I wonder who's commentating that game.
Manaia Stewart and Ben Hurley.
Oh, Ben Hurley, Hurley's Heroes, and Manaia Stewart, as heard on the Mad Monday podcast. Bloody exciting. I believe that's on Sky Sport 9? Usually is the thing, unless you hear otherwise.
No, check our socials for any updates on that close to the time as well.
Who'll do play-by-play on that?
Ben Hurley, I think.
Ben Hurley, yeah.
But I'll throw my hat in the ring.
But also, hey, the thing Hurls mentioned the other day was he's not as good because there's so many players swapping teams and stuff. He's not as good with just recognising players off site. Oh, no, it's the Cows, his second favourite team, so he'll be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be totally fine.
Just to confirm, it is Sky Sports 6.
Sky Sports 6.
Sorry, my sheet was upside down. Ben Hurley and I will have a bubbler competition just prior to kick-off to decide who has to, or who gets to do play-by-play commentary.
Yeah, bloody ripper. Or you could also, you do the Warriors and then he does the Cows, whoever's got the ball.
Consecutively?
Which could be quite good.
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll move on to the stonker of the round. It was the Sharks who just had the wood over the Eels, winning 30 points to 26.
Getting Simons on the back. Ronaldo! He gets over!
Oh, shout out to Dan Ganane for going big on Ronaldo Mulitalo, who's one of my favourite players. The Sharks beating the Eels by 4 in a high-scoring game, 56 points scored. I don't know if you caught this game live or whether you watched the replay, but holy cow, it was so entertaining mixed with so many mistakes. There could have been 30 more points put out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the scoreline kind of makes it look like the end was a little bit more thrilling than it actually was in real time because they actually scored to try to tighten the scoreline up a bit. But as you say, Dan Ganane, I think, said right at the end of that commentary, is like, what an incredible 80 minutes of rugby league action. And it was. It was end-to-end stuff. The tries that each team was scoring, Will Kennedy was scoring tries from the ends of the earth. I think he made 2 breakaways. I think he scored one of them. and they were about 50-metre efforts that he had to make. The Sharks looked excellent in this game, I
They
thought.
do look excellent, considering they are without Nico Hines, and as we said earlier before the potty, in hindsight, they've brought in Braden Trindle, who's plugging straight in and doing a great job, and the team does look good.
Well, he threw a sick little pass to Britton Nicotter.
Yeah.
Some of the dreamiest eyes in the NRL.
Britton Nicotter, who I used to get mixed up with Sean Johnson, but then I'd remember who was who because Britton Nicotter would run it. I really love Britton Nicotter because he runs like such great lines. He always seems to be there, and you can just put him in space, and he's always, he's one of my favourite players to watch.
He's probably the prettiest back row we've got in the league, I would say.
Absolutely one of.
His eyes would be on par with the likes of Reece Walsh. I'll
Yeah.
give you Ezra Mam, who's got those brilliant sort of greenish eyes.
He is quite striking, isn't he,
he's a
Ezra Mam?
striking
But
looking man.
we'll get into that Queensland matchup and how hot they all are after this. But one guy who, even though the Eels have now lost 2 games in a row, Dylan frickin' Brown is when he goes through this. He'll just decide one game that I'm going to throw out so many sidesteps, scucky ones, by the way, that my goal is to hit 40 sidesteps tonight. And when he is in that mood, he is just unstoppable.
Yeah, because I think the hallmark of his game isn't that sort of Sean Johnson, Benji-esque hot stepping. But like you say, he is capable of it.
Yeah.
I heard people even disrespecting him last season saying he's a defensive 6.
What?
Yeah, I've heard people describe him as a defensive 6. And I think it's because a lot of the things that he does, they don't show up on the fantasy stats. They don't show up in the highlights after the round either. But he is a winning player. And, he looked absolutely excellent.
He did. And, shout out to Josh Hodgson, who's like 50, playing full 80 and off a 3rd knee construction or something. He looks good.
Remarkable considering he's only got 2 knees. So it's he's found himself a little bit of a resurgence here. He was instrumental in that Canberra run when they made it into the final and then were robbed by a 6 again call that wasn't a 6 again call.
Oh my God, that's right. Jeez,
I know.
It seems like a long time ago.
Deeply traumatic. But another player who's having a bit of a resurgence after a relatively quiet year last year is Mike Acevo, or as Ben Hurley,
I like that.
as Ben Hurley calls him, Mike Acevo.
Michael Acevo.
He was just in terrifying form again on the weekend. He was bowling over people. He was running around people. He threw a goosey when there was no one near him by about 10 metres. And Blocker was on this call as well. And I think it was Will Kennedy went for the ankle tap. And Blocker goes, don't bother trying to ankle tap that bloke. Have a look at him.
And the thing with Michael, is that if he gets the ball and then there's a guy on him straight away, you can shut him down.
Yeah.
If he gets the ball and then there's 3 seconds and then there's a guy on him, he's going to break that tackle. And even Sione Katoa on the Sharks' right wing, who's a bit of a beast himself, he got absolutely demolished trying to stop Michael Acevo from scoring in the corner.
They got hold of one of his legs.
Yeah, he's just holding on for dear life.
And was sort of like unconscious. You know when you see a UFC fighter get knocked out and then he comes to and he's holding onto the leg of the ref? That's what Sione Katoa looked like. He was just holding onto the ref's leg. But it was Mike Acevo's tree trunks. And he, like you say, he will just run directly over the top of you. More embarrassingly than that, he actually picked Sione Katoa up off the ground as well, which is a real humiliator. Leave me there in a pile of my own urine. I'd rather that thing be picked up.
Afterwards, like the shot. Sorry about that, bro.
He steamrolled him and then made sure to get up, and instead of celebrating, he picked him up.
He wanted to be a good guy about
Leave me there. I'd rather die.
Also, quick shout out to Jermaine Hopgood, who's made a second start in lock for the Eels and looks like an out-and-out gun.
Oh, you mean the Hop God?
The Hop God. I thought it was Jermaine Howgood, but yeah, the Hop God. He is a freak. He makes like 60 tackles a game. He's offloading. He's getting try assists. I think he had 2 of them.
Yep, line breaks, try assists,
and
tackles.
He's what is Mitch Barnett?
Ruthless Parkour boy.
He's a Ruthless Parkour boy.
Shout out to him. We'll chuck him in the club. I'll keep track of these.
Yeah, he's got the head tape on. He's got the crazy eyes. Jermaine Hopgood is the man.
I think if there's ever a community that we're least likely to get cancelled by, it's probably the RPVs. So I'm going to make a running tally of that.
We'll just get you to lead the charge on that one.
We'll chuck the Hop.
Should be fine.
We'll chuck the Hop God in there.
So yeah, the Eels. one issue that both these sides have is that Wonga Blake and Jesse Ramian are a clone of one another. Both on attack can be awesome, but they both have a huge stuff up every game in them.
Yeah.
They both do that, either whether it's a high tackle or a drop ball or something.
Wonga Blake and who, sorry?
Jesse Ramian.
Oh, yeah. I would love to see Jesse Ramian running the high top fade that Wonga Blake used to run.
Oh, he did used to run that. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Look. That way we could, they'd be indistinguishable. And now, every time of this part of the season, the same joke starts coming up on Facebook in terms of NRL memes. Mm-hmm. Just like famous Owens, Owen Wilson, Terrell Owen, Owen 2. And then a photo of Mitch Moses. The Eels are currently 0-2. All the news headlines are like, horror start for the Eels. Can I just, if you don't mind, Manaia, this is who the Eels have got next, okay? The Eels are playing the Manly Sea Eagles this Thursday at 10 o'clock. Manly fresh off a bye.
That's a dub. That's a dub for the Eels.
Oh, you reckon?
I think so.
That's an L for the Eels, I think.
Okay.
They're then playing the Panthers at 10 o'clock, fresh off a bye.
That's an L.
They're then playing the Roosters at 10 o'clock.
Well, the Roosters just beat the Warriors, I believe, who, by all accounts, it's our year.
Well, exactly. So, according to all the research I've done, and then they've got the Tigers. So, but they're ready to actually. There's a realistic chance that they could start the season 0-5, which would be just classic Parramatta, really.
Yeah, and we'll get into Supercoach tomorrow, I believe. But Hop God, he's got a brilliant run for the next few weeks, as you just mentioned. He's just put up 2 monster scores. So
he's a brilliant run. He's going to get. He'll make a lot of tackles.
Yeah, he'll make a lot of breaks. He'll score a lot of points. Captain him.
All right. Yeah, no, fair. He's a genuine. We'll get into this tomorrow. But, all right, that does it for the stonker of the round. Of course, the Sharks taking down the Eels, 30 points to 26. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll be going through the rest of the talking points from round 2 in the NRL. Welcome back to the Mad Monday podcast, brought to you by the ACC, of course, live from the Export Beer Garden studio. You've got Chris Key, you've got Manaia Stewart as well. We've done the Warriors, we've done the Stonker, which was the Sharks and the Eels. So time to go through a few of the talking points from round 2 in the NRL.
It was better than Lego.
It was better than Lego. It was the Dolphins getting their second win of the season. Manaia Stewart, The Dolphins have played 2 games. They've won 2 games. They are currently sitting second on the table, right?
Fish.
But the top 3 teams, the other 2, the Dragons and the Sea Eagles, their 2 points have come from a bye, which means the Dolphins are the out-and-out top team in the NRL at the moment. Are you surprised by that?
Yeah, I'm absolutely shocked by that. I mean, so many people were calling for them to be the wooden spooners. And I think the older you are, the more prone you are to saying that they're going to be the wooden spooners. I don't know why, but the older the blokes just thought you can't come into a league and not be the shittest team in that league.
And then the oldest bloke in the NRL, Wayne Bennett, proved everyone wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't get I think a lot of the stories were around how he didn't get Munster. He didn't get all of these different players.
Even Brandon Smith he wanted.
Brandon Smith, allegedly, he was going after Sean Stevenson, who's having an absolute blinder for the Chiefs. Might be the best player in Super Rugby at the moment. He was linked to the Dolphins as well, but chose to have a crack at the World Cup this year, and probably deserves to get it, but that's for a different podcast that Tony Lyle will host later on this week. The Fish, I think...
Sorry, have we got a rugby union podcast?
Yeah, I think we do.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's exciting. Okay, carry on.
So, the Fish... listen, I've got a bit of advice for the Fish.
Who's the Fish?
The Dolphins.
Oh,
The Fins.
yeah.
I talk down to them because they're the new kids on the block.
Yeah, nice, bro. Yeah,
Warriors have been in the league since 96, 95.
Dolphins fish.
Dolphins are not fish, they are mammals.
They're mammals.
They breathe through the top of their...
Spout.
Yeah, and actually, interestingly, Chris, because of the way that their respiratory system works, you can smoke a dolphin like a bong.
Is this the Redcliffe Dolphin? Oh, the actual dolphin.
An actual dolphin, you can smoke a dolphin like a bong.
Wow, but Manaia Stewart will be doing a podcast on that later in the week.
I'll be on a... Look, by the end of the year, I'd love to do a podcast on a dolphin bong, but I digress. The Fish, I've got a bit of advice for them from someone who's supported the Warriors for a long time. Take a photo of the table. We do this after the first game of every season as the Warriors.
I did it this year. We were 7th.
Just last week. Just last week, we were at the top of the tables after we'd won our game because of points differential. And look, I took a photo of it. I took a screenshot of it. Gloat now because I can't see them making the 8 by the end of the year. I could be wrong.
I hope you're wrong, but I can't see that happening either.
No. couple of notes on the Dolphins. Actually, one note on the Dolphins. They've got the best home ground in the league.
I've written it down. Even on a soggy as day, how good does the bistro look behind the goalpost, man?
Yeah, and so when the game starts, there's people hoeing into some, I don't know, lamb shanks. It looks like
I'm gonna go like chicken parmesanas.
Yeah.
And, things like that.
Yeah. Chicken schnitty.
Schnitties, yeah.
Very Australian to sit up there and tuck into a schnitty. But by the end of the game, they were all standing along the edge of the bistro watching the game. So I would love to get over there. Maybe we could. That should be the prize if you're leading and we're playing the fish at home.
I would love to go watch Dolphins v Waz in Redcliffe, have a schnitty and a schooner on the balcony, and then you're literally leaning over watching the Hammer score the winning try, 10 metres. That is one hell of a setup. Shout out to the Hammer as well, by the way. He scored both of his tries while the Dolphins had people in the bin.
Yep.
Jeremy Marshall-King was in the bin, then he scored when Sean O'Sullivan went in the bin as well. He is a handful. Keep an eye on him out of dummy. He's been threatening. He got held up over the line. So I think the Hammer is no longer being the Hammer of old. He is reborn, and I like it.
He's a proper out-and-out number one. Do you think that Dolphins fans should be getting their hopes up, or do you agree with me that it's a mirage? Take a photo of it, hang it in the pool room.
Enjoy the ride
and
just make the most of it. But hey, if you prove us wrong, that's awesome, and I'm very excited for you. And shout out to Kafusi for being an absolute psycho on defence once again.
I couldn't work out why your wife calls you noodles, but then I worked it out. 2 minutes and you're done.
The next talking point in the NRL is the fact that the Panthers managed to right the ship. 2 losses in a row they were staring down the barrel of. Well, actually 3 they were staring down the barrel of. And they managed to get the job done over the Rabbitohs. Admittedly, a couple of their tries were a bit iffy, including Luke Garner blatantly dropping the ball and then Luai scissor kicking it for Isaac Tungle to score there. But are you convinced, Manaia, now that the Panthers are back to their premiership winning best?
Yeah, I was never too off-put by the, for the same reason that we take a photo of the table after round 1 because we're at the top.
Yeah.
Because we know that that's probably not going to last. It's the same the other way around. The Panthers, nobody's played more rugby league over the last 3 years than the Panthers. They've been in the finals every single time. So they're going deep into the playoffs. They're also having some pretty full-on celebrations after winning the last 2 titles. And that's going to have an effect on a premier footballer. So I don't think that we should have thrown the baby out with the bathwater after that first loss, nor should we have had they lost this one. I've written down the players that they've lost. How's this for prep? Kick out, he's gone. The Hop God,
what's he on their thing?
Could have done with him. Api Koroisau, he's gone. He's gone to the Tigers, captaining them, if you can believe that. If you've forgotten who Api Koroisau is, he's the guy who laughed last year when they said, are you enjoying this premiership win? Because they don't win those down at the Tigers. And he laughed and said, right. Yeah. He's now the captain of the Tigers. Sean O'Sullivan, who formerly of the Warriors fame.
That's right. Formerly used to go around for Christmas dinner with Matt Lodge and the rest of the O'Sullivans in New Zealand. Yep. So that was good.
His father was the recruiter when he was signed here. Read into that what you will. And then Charlie Staines is gone as well, who, look, was an interesting story last year, the Forbes Ferrari, but I don't know that they were hanging their premiership hopes on Charlie Staines.
May, ACL gone.
Taylor May, ACL gone.
Although Taruva looked really good. He was getting through so much work. I think he led the team in run meters.
Well, I dare say they could put Chris Key on the wing of the Panthers and he might look okay. And I think that the Panthers have made a lot of wingers a lot of money.
Right.
But basically what I'm saying is they've lost a lot of players. You can't expect them to look exactly like they did over the last couple of years. And on top of that, you add the fatigue.
Yeah.
They talk about it in the NBA all the time with like the Warriors winning all those championships.
You lose the fizz, the fire.
You lose the fizz, the fire. Every player on that team also thinks that they were a fair chunk of the reason why they won that. So the egos get bigger, the disease of more. They all want more minutes. They all want more shine.
They want more money, of course.
They want more money. Hell, the Warriors in the NBA just won last year. And they're having issues again this year. So I think we just presume that because the team won last year that it's going to be just as easy for them this year. But I don't think that's often the case.
Yeah, I think if they are going to do well, I mean, I liked the look of Garner finally. Well, not finally, we're only 2 games in, but he looked so bad in round 1. He looked quite good in round 2, even if his try assist sort of thing was a blatant knock on. And I also love Sonny. It's actually, people are saying Sonny Luke, but it's actually Sonny Luke.
Yep.
No, it's Sonny Luke. He is looking good for a young fella, and once he can sort of figure out because they're still a bit clunky.
And they're figuring out that spot as well.
Yeah, so if he can come on, and if they start with him eventually, he's going to be an absolute gun. He's a bit of a mini uppie, which I love the look of. And also shout out Latrell. He's been injured all week. Last week, didn't really train much. Looked a bit ordinary for most of the game, but came right at the end there, but just not quite enough for the Bunnies.
Nah. But I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater with the Panthers. I think they're going to be okay, but it's going to be a weird season for them, I think.
It is. You did right.
You get dumber as you get old. I'm going to put you in a wheelbarrow to get you where the you got to go to.
For 10 points, you know who that was?
No.
That was Zach Lomax doing a...
oh, my God, yes.
Yeah, doing an impersonation of Anthony Griffin.
Was that on that KO Sports thing where they get the two players and have a yarn with them, or was that Fletch and Hindy?
That was just a little bit of inside coverage that the ACC brought to you.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. Nice. I like it.
Adam actually sat down with them earlier, just in the preseason.
Oh, right. Adam Pullman, a producer. Good on you, mate.
Yeah, look forward to that one coming out later on in the season.
Way to go above and beyond. The Queensland Derby, the Broncos and the Cowboys going head-to-head, an absolute ripper of a game on Friday night. The Broncos got the win 28-16. Ben Hurley will not be happy. I personally am extremely happy. Do you know how stoked I am that we got rid of Reece Walsh, man? Like, I'm so stoked that he's gone. We don't have to watch him setting up 2 tries, putting people in space. Although, to be fair, as Di rightly pointed out when I drunkenly sent this opinion through to the chat, he's not the fullback we need.
Absolutely not.
Try-saving Charles Nickel-Klukstad, who's given his all on defence.
Well, the amount of tries that I saw last year against the Warriors with Reece Walsh hanging off the bottom of whoever scored it.
Just Sione Katoaing someone's leg.
Yeah, and what you were doing on the weekend, Chris, is you were doing the rugby league equivalent of looking up your ex on Instagram and scrolling through her photos.
But I tell you what, she's looking hot on Friday night.
She's had a glow up. She's still got those beautiful eyes. She's still doing all those amazing things that you remember her doing, but now she's doing them with someone else, and that someone else is the Broncos. So what I suggest you do, Chris, is you mute your ex on Instagram.
Oh, but
I know you
Did
do,
you watch
Chris,
it?
and this is the problem. Yeah, I watched it, and I can watch it because I'm not emotionally invested in Reece Walsh like you are. You need to mute Reece Walsh.
All right, I'm going to mute him.
Block him.
Yeah, I'm
Don't
block
look
him.
at his DMs.
Okay, yeah.
Don't look at his photos.
Yeah, okay.
If a
Okay.
particularly hot one shows up, I'll show you.
Okay.
But leave that for me to decide, and you need to just do your own self a favour and block Reece Walsh and carry on. Just quickly on Corey Oates. So he got his jaw shattered.
Yes. That was terrible.
Yeah, Scotty Drinkwater's angelic little face on him. He was the shoulder charge he was guilty of. Only 10 in the bin. Didn't get sent for that. I expect he'll miss a couple of games. A brutal fracture on Corey Oates' chin. Peter Hiku has also been sent to the judiciary this week for a crusher tackle on also Corey Oates.
Oh, wow.
How was that for a game for Corey Oates? He's getting crushed. He's getting shoulder charged.
Oh, man.
He's drinking through a straw for the next few weeks.
That was rough. And I actually think, based on how slick the backline looks with Ezra Mam, with Adam Reynolds, with my ugly ex,
Reece Walsh.
the only thing they're really missing is the hooker there. But that backline is quite sharp out to the left, especially with Herbie Farnworth out there as well.
Herbie was looking good. Jesse Arthurs.
Jesse Arthurs, yeah, absolutely. So, oh my God, if Jesse Arthurs takes Oates' spot on the wing,
I'm going to have to get you to block Jesse Arthurs as well.
oh shit, he's my other ex.
He's
I
your
forgot I
other
was
ex.
doing both of them at once. God damn it, he looked good. And he's got a massive moustache as well, just to rub things in.
Yeah, thick head of hair, great fade, tight fade.
Shout out to Scott Drinkwater for getting 1 fantasy point, by the way. That's impressive. And also Marty Topo. They're getting close. We've got a Swahihi situation going on. They've gone from calling him Tapau to Taupa'u.
Taupa'u.
He's Māori, isn't he?
No, I believe he's Samoan.
Is he Samoan? Well, he plays for the Kiwis.
Well, a lot of Samoan people play for the Kiwis. Do you think that they shouldn't be allowed to, Chris?
So he is Samoan. So it's not Topo. it's Tau. It's like Taupa'u.
I don't know that we're the two people that need to adjudicate on the pronunciation of this, but I also know that it's not the NRL's commentators either.
No, it's not Taupa'u. It might be, actually. It might be an invisible apostrophe. Well, I rescind that, actually. I need to find out more about that.
Because just on the pronunciation thing, I don't know that Junior Paulo is related to Ken Barlow from... why am I blanking on the name of that? Not Shortland Street, but Coronation Street. Ken Barlow, the longest running character
Barlow
on any TV show ever.
Well, him
anywhere.
and Jackson Barlow are Ken Barlow's kids. Junior and Jackson
Now,
Barlow.
is that with Gail, who owns
that's
the
with-
salon?
I haven't watched a single episode of Coronation Street, so I'm not really set up for this yarn. But yes, the Broncos getting the big win over the Cowboys in the Queensland Derby.
Sea Eagles 36 defeat Bulldogs 18. One vote. Oshay Olay.
Do you know who Peter V'landys was trying to say there?
Osho Ale. Was that Olaquatu or something?
Nudge. No, but he was the next person that he said he butchered that to. No, that was Josh Aloye.
Oh, Aloy, yeah. To be fair, it's a tough one. There's a lot of vowels in there. But yeah, the Bulldogs absolutely crushed Melbourne. I put $1 on Melbourne to win 13 plus, and for who's their new winger from New Zealand, the Sevens silver medalist,
Warbrick.
Warbrick to score a try, and boy did that backfire. Lost $1. Really pissed off about it actually. But shout out to Jacob Carraz, who was an absolute beast for the Doggies. Got through so much work. Scored a couple of tries as well. And Matt Burton is doing F all, is my summation of the Dogs. Despite them winning, he still didn't really do much.
Nah, and I think the thing, he's having a bit of second-year syndrome where obviously he was Dally M Centre of the Year when he was with the Panthers. Then he went to the Dogs last year, had a great season. I got to watch a couple of those Burton bombs live and in the flesh. They are terrifying. And they're terrifying to the point that I think the other team's entire game plan is set around him. Have a think about in cricket how many times you see a player come on the scene and score a century on debut or a double century like Matthew Sinclair and then not go on to have too amazing a career after that. It's because the other team now knows exactly what he's trying to do.
So they're rushing up on him.
They're like, whatever happens against the Bulldogs, do not let Matt Burton put one of those bombs up because we are screwed.
The other I mean, I know he transitioned from the centres into the halves, but he's not really using his running game either, which as a guy who, because I do NRL draft and Supercoach, I do Supercoach draft and Supercoach Classic, I took him with my second pick and he's been really shit, and I'm keeping a close eye on him. He just doesn't look like he's got that aggressive... I don't know. What it is.
It's the time that they've taken away from him. So it's the same thing. He can't get running, can't get going because he's got about 3 flies on him by the time he catches the ball. But yeah, look, I just don't know that the Storm, truly awful kit they were wearing on the weekend as well. I just don't know that the Storm, like they were saying they're going through the start of a transition period. I think they're at the end of a transition period and that they are missing a lot of players.
I mean, no Munster's huge. No Pappenhausen, everyone forgets as well.
Yeah.
If you look at their spine when they're all healthy...
Justin Olam's out as well.
Justin Olam, who's an absolute piece of granite. But Grant, Jerome Hughes, Munster, Pappenhausen, that is a premiership winning spine. They are without 2 of those things. They've just lost Nelson to Sofa Solomona to an MCL injury, who came on and was big in a wee bit of a comeback. So I agree. And they've got young Tonamapea, who seems to be a bit of a Wonga Blake, Jesse Ramian type dude who can do something scucks and then
get sent to the bin for his efforts.
And then get sent to the bin pretty soon after that. So I don't think the Storm are going to be as good as I first thought.
Also, whispers that could be Bellamy's last year. In fact, I think he's almost just about set it out and out.
But he wouldn't want to finish on a sour note like that, right?
Well, it might not be up to him.
Yeah, but no, he'll probably stay on though.
I think this is going to be a tough start to the season for them until they can start to get people back, even if they can get Pappenhausen back.
Yeah, shit. What's happening with him, man? Who knows? I mean, we could have Nick Meaney at fullback for the entire season, We just don't know.
So, I think it's going to be interesting for the Storm.
Yep, it will be. Shout out to the Bulldogs who gave Franklin Pele, their new front rower, off the bench a few more minutes. Have you seen him?
No.
Huge beast. Massive dude.
He's a monster.
Reminds me of you, actually, because he only lasts a few minutes, but while he's there, he's giving it his all, and he's really getting through a lot of work. So
he's problematic.
He is problematic. So huge shout out to Franklin Pele. Next talking point is Kalen Ponga and his head knocks. Now, Kalen Ponga was someone I was looking at very closely for Supercoach, and then I was like, you know what? He is so prone to being knocked out. He runs so deep into the line on attack. He waits until Victor Radley's shoulder is an inch away from his face before passing to set up a try. And this was done on defence, just straight head-on-head contact. Was 4th concussion in 6 months or something crazy.
4th in 10 months. He missed 6 weeks at the end of last season.
That's right. Cut short.
Stats. Look, the worrying thing for me about Kalen Ponga and this head knock is I just hope he's learned his lesson from the last one, because Kurt Mann can't be expected to be there every time he's in a toilet cubicle by himself.
Yeah, it's true.
And has forgotten the effect that a concussion can have on you when you're having a couple of skewies. So, I'm more worried about Kurt Mann. him and Connor Watson, when Connor Watson was playing there, they were thick as thieves. They were boys. They played. They lived together.
Right.
They had a podcast that almost outranked this one.
Is it Ponga and Connor Watson?
And Connor Watson, yeah. And then Connor Watson went to the Roosters. And Kurt Mann, I think, has really filled that void. And I just worry if he's being led astray. You know, he's come in there and he's going to have to look after Kalen Ponga, who I dare say should probably wear the headgear next time he goes out on the piss. I don't know why I developed a Victorian accent there.
He should start wearing lots of headgear on the field. But I think if that burden ever became too much for Kurt Mann, I think he wouldn't have an issue telling Ponga that.
Yep.
In fact, I think he'd be pretty curt, man.
A great game, the Tigers and the Knights, and a little bit of tension as well because former Tigers, he was sort of the backbone of the Tigers while he was there, Jackson Hastings.
Yes.
He collected Tommy Talau across the bridge of the nose there. He did a post-match interview and he said, yeah, look, I apologise to him on the field. If I see him again, I'll go over and apologise. I feel really bad about that. This is what he's talking to Vonnie and the crew back in the studio. He then walks over to say sorry to Tommy Talau. Tommy Talau grabs him by the collar and starts shaking him.
I didn't see that. Is that what happened?
Yeah. David Clemmer then comes over as well. He gets involved.
Oh, my goodness.
And one of the coaches or assistants or something came and grabbed Jackson Hastings and took him away. It was scandalous. Did you see this, Adam?
Yeah, I did. Do you reckon he was talking smack? I honestly think he went over there because he just finished a pretty pleasant interview.
Yeah.
And he's probably just had a bit of, he's thought it over and he's like, oh, sorry, mate, kind of thing. And the guy's just spat the dummy.
Yeah. Because he was still very furious about it. And David Clemmer had the crazy eyes going.
Oh, God.
Yeah, when they say that David Clemmer put in a great 80 minutes, he put in about 85, 90 because he was still going after the horn.
The best part is that they kept it on camera as well.
Yeah.
So the whole time it was happening, they switched back to the studio. The coverage was still on the field, and they were talking about what was going on while it was all blowing up. I applaud the man who was there switching the vision and just left it there and just ran it.
And then start commentating it. See, that's what you want to see, the drama.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you raised though, Adam. Like, I wonder if, because he did give such a, Jackson Hastings is such a upstanding bloke, and he said, oh, look, I apologise to him. I'll apologise again if I see him. I wonder if he then took the headphones off and then just goes, I fucking smashed it.
Or just walked past nice nose, mate.
Yeah, just got stuck into it.
Also, shout out to Jacob Saifiti for the worst head high I've seen
my God.
in a long time. Jake Simpkin.
Yeah, remember back in the day when you could press R1 on the PlayStation and then deliberately do a coat hanger?
And it goes into that pre-made animation of just the worst what is it? Clothes hanger.
Clothes hanger, yeah. It was egregious. I don't know how he's going to talk his way out of that one.
Yeah, he could be missing quite a bit of time.
Now, was this the good Saifiti or the other one?
The other one.
The other one. Well, okay, I was going to say if it was the good one, wouldn't you send the other one in? If the Origin one did it, you send the non-Origin one in.
Yeah, no, it was just NRL Saifiti, not Origin Saifiti. All right, now one last thing before we end things for today, Manaia. I'm trying to figure out who the worst team in the NRL is because usually, for example, Melbourne playing the Bulldogs back in the day, a couple of years ago, you go, oh, it's going to be an absolute pantsing, or if they were playing the Tigers or whatever. At this stage, most teams have won at least one game. Yep. The only teams that haven't won any games yet, the Raiders, the Eels, and the West Tigers, but I'm pretty confident the Raiders and the Eels will improve upon that.
Yeah, that's right.
Are the Tigers the worst team in the comp?
Well, it's between the Tigs and the Tits for me. It's either got to be the Tigers or the Titans. Now, the Tigers, they lost. We just talked about this game, but it was actually more boring than you'd think it would be. It was 14-12.
Right.
So they've definitely got to be in there. And then the Tits lost a shit show against the Dragons as well, who a lot of people were calling the Dragons like almost a lock-in for the wooden spoon.
Yeah, although they were fresh off. That was their first game of the season, though.
Yeah, so look, maybe. I don't know if fatigue can really be an excuse 2 weeks into the season, but who knows? Maybe it is. So for me, it's between the Tigs and the Tits. Well, happily, you only have to scroll back 1 week to find out that the Titans actually beat the Tigers 22-10.
So the Tigers are the shittest league in the comp.
So facto, Tigers are the shittest team in the comp.
That is some thorough analysis from you, Manaia. Fantastic. That does end things for the Mad Monday podcast. Don't forget, the Wars are playing this weekend against the Cowboys, 7:30 p.m. Saturday night. If you are going to watch it on Sky, flick over to Sky Sports 6 and you'll have Ben Hurley and Manaia Stewart doing the ACC commentary. We'll be back tomorrow with a bit of a Supercoach roundup of the weekend as well from myself, Manaia Stewart, and Adam Pormana. We'll see you soon.
Let's go on.
Is not Australia.